Hi, thanks for watching this video. What you see on the screen is the Sopwith Triplane that I developed for X-Plane version 10, the flight simulator program that has become very popular. Not a lot of these triplanes were made during World War I, but when they came on the scene, they had a big impact on the aviation world. The Germans were especially surprised to see such a maneuverable, fast-climbing, effective fighter. In fact, they spent a lot of time developing a number of prototypes to try to duplicate the performance of this little airplane. Now, this model is free. It's a result of a couple years, actually more than 2 years, of development by myself with the help of a lot of community members. Thanks, guys. Provided for free to the xplane.org community. The purpose of this video is to familiarize anyone with the model who is interested in downloading it or who has downloaded it. If you want to download this model, I suggest that you Google xplane.org b²18 files. That should get you to the list of models that I've published on the xplane.org website. And from there, you should easily be able to download it. Of course, you have to have the X-Plane program or at least a trial copy set up to try out this model. By the way, this video supplements a very detailed pilot handbook that is included with the download. Okay, let's start with a little walk around of the plane just to kind of get you oriented. First of all, you'll notice that the model replicates the rotary engine which turns with the propeller. Another thing you'll see is that the model is completely modeled in 3D using a 3D modeling program. And notice that the pilot is animated. He was created especially for this program. And you'll see that the controls, ailerons, elevator, rudder, all work as they should. The livery of this model is based on that of the plane flown by Raymond Collishaw, a Canadian flyer, who was the leader of a group called the Black Flight. 5 aircraft, each one with a similar black cowl and tail. The plane of each member of the flight was identified by the first letter of that pilot's last name. For example, C for Collishaw. The model's startup procedure replicates that of the actual airplane. There are several steps you have to go through, not necessarily in the sequence shown, but all the steps have to be included. First, you need to pump the hand pump in order to pressurize the fuel tank. Secondly, you need to turn both magnetos to the on position. Third, you need to turn the fuel valve from the off to the on position. Fourth, for taking off, you'll want the throttle and the mixture controls in the full on position. And finally, you will want to remove the chocks, which are holding the airplane in place. Exactly how to perform all these functions is explained in detail in the pilot's handbook that comes with the model. So let's see those steps in action. Chalk's clear. The triplane model includes a fully animated model of the Vickers 303 caliber machine gun that was used by that plane. The first step in using the gun is to activate the charging handle, which in turn activates the crank handle, which inserts a round into the chamber. Once that's done, the gun is ready to fire. There's no safety on the gun. Once the charging handle is used, the gun is armed and ready to go. Another feature that the model replicates from the real airplane is something called a blip switch. On rotary engines on the early aircraft, it was very difficult to control the speed of the engine. So they came up with a button on the joystick that you could press and release to stop the engine for just an instant. If you kept pressing and releasing that button fast, you could slow the engine down enough to help in landing or taxiing. The problem was if you held the button too long, fluids would build up in the engine and the engine could very easily stop and possibly catch fire. That feature is also replicated in this model, as you can see here. If you want to see what some pilots during World War I had to contend with, set yourself up for an approach to an airport and keep the throttle and mixture controls wherever they are and start using the blip switch and see how easy or difficult it is to land on the airstrip. Good luck! In the infancy of aviation, a lot of things were trial and error. And some of the errors involve issues with limitations on the aircraft's performance. You'll notice on the instrument panel, red numbers 1250 for the maximum revolutions per minute of the engine and 170 knots for the maximum airspeed. When either of those numbers was exceeded, there would be dire consequences. First, let's see what happens when the engine and propeller exceed the revolutions per minute limitations. The problem is that at that time the wooden propellers that were used could not stand revolutions much higher than 1500 RPM. And the engine also was not designed for very high RPMs. Let's see what happens when the RPM limit is exceeded. In the lower left-hand corner of the screen, you will notice three gauges that measure RPM, airspeed, and altitude. These are three important considerations as far as the limitations of the aircraft and of the model. In terms of the RPM, keep an eye on what happens as the plane exceeds the limitations. Any gauge can be removed from view simply by clicking on the X next to it. A broken propeller might mean a dead stick landing, which in the case of these aircraft would not necessarily be fatal. On the other hand, diving at too fast of a speed could cause a triplane's wings to fold up and the plane crash, killing the pilot. That effect also is included in this model. With the wings folded, of course the ailerons can no longer be used to control the aircraft. However, the rudder can be used to keep the plane upright, and the elevators to try to reduce the rate of descent. I hope you found this video helpful. My 15 minutes are almost up, so let's finish off with some still shots from the pilot's handbook that comes with the model.